everybody. I hope everyone is having a great day today on Tuesday. This week we are continuing in math what we worked on last week. We're going to be problem solving with area and perimeter of rectangles. Now, just a little warning, next week we are going to be doing area with more complicated figures. So it might be like different size rectangles that are connected together, or bigger shapes made up of rectangles that you're going to have to decompose and find areas of different pieces to add together. So this week it is very important that you feel really good about area and perimeter of rectangles. And if you don't, you need to reach out to me or to Miss Bell on Wednesday so that we can meet with you and help you to get you caught up if there's something you're confused about or you're just not really sure. Let us know so that we can help you, because next week, if you don't understand what we've done last week and this week, it's going to get more confusing. So don't hesitate to ask us if you need help, okay? So you're going to be in your area and perimeter slides. It's the same slides as last week. You're going to start today with day 3, and you're going to go do your estimation 180. I don't think we've already done this one. If I did, I apologize, but I think we haven't. I know we did some cheese balls, but I don't think we did this one. So go ahead and write down your estimates that are too low, too high, and the ones you think that are just right, and then come back to the video. Okay, hopefully you had fun estimating. Hopefully we hadn't already done that one. And we'll have one more cheese ball estimation 180 later this week. So click down now to your first mini lesson slide, and this is just a reminder that last week we talked about area and perimeter. And we know that area is the amount of space inside of an object. Right now we're only talking about rectangles, and the unit for area is units squared. So it could be square feet, square miles, square inches, square meters. Whatever the unit is, it's going to be squared. Perimeter is the length of the distance around the outside of the object. Again, we're talking about rectangles right now, but other objects do have a perimeter, and it's still the area outside. And I put this picture back again that we looked at last week because I just think it's a really good model visually for you to see the difference between area, which is the ground inside of this garden, and perimeter, which is the fence around it. So you can click back to that if you get confused. Okay, so we're going to look at the shape that's on your next slide together, and I'm going to model some thinking with this shape. Okay, so I want you to think about the things you notice, and I've already made a little chart back here that we're going to fill in together. And if you want to make this similar chart on paper at home, you can. If you want to just come back to the video if you need to see it again, that's fine too. So when we look at the figure on your slide, what are some things we notice? And if we're thinking about area and perimeter, the first things we should be noticing are the length and the width. And now I had a couple people ask me last week, what's the difference? Which ones are length? Which ones are width? To me, it doesn't really matter, because if you put them both together, you're going to come up with the area and perimeter. But I usually think of length as the top and the bottom, and the width as the sides. But even if you do it the other way around, if you use your formulas correctly, it'll be fine. So if I notice this figure, I can count the units. Whoops, I messed my slide up. I notice that my length is 6 units. Because if I count each unit going across the top and across the bottom, it's 6. And we know it's the same because in a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. Now let's look at the width. If you look at the length of the sides on the edges, we see that the width is 3 units, okay? So I went ahead and wrote our formulas. You need to memorize these. Hopefully you have the first one for area memorized from 3rd grade, and it shouldn't be too hard to memorize the perimeter one. So area equals length times width. So for this shape, I'm going to switch sides over here so I can see my computer better. Area is going to equal 6 because that's the length, times 3 because that's the width. And we know that 6 times 3 is 18. Now, it didn't say if it was inches or centimeters on this one, so we're just going to say units. Okay, so the area of that rectangle is 18 square units. Now, our new formula from last week. Hopefully you practiced it really well on Friday. But you can continue to practice it today and probably again on Friday this week. So perimeter equals 2 times the length, which here is 6 units, plus 2 times the width, which is 3. So that's going to be 2 times 6, which is 12, plus 2 times 3, which is 6. And if we add those together, we get 18. I forgot my square up here. Sorry guys, that was square units. This one is units. Now what do we notice about this figure? If you look closely, let me find another color. I didn't get my markers ready. We have an area and perimeter for this shape that is the same. Now, this will happen sometimes, but a lot of times a rectangle will have a perimeter and an area that are different from each other. And that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay, and then you're going to do some practice where you're going to create some shapes, which is kind of what we're going to do here, given the area or perimeter. So you're going to have to work backwards. So I'm going to model that for you now. So if you click to your next slide, it's a lot of words, I know, I'm sorry. But basically we're going to think about the perimeter and area of some different rectangles. So this is rectangle number 1. The perimeter is 16 units. The area is 15 square units. Now I have to figure out what the length and width could be of this rectangle. Now this sounds a little hard, a little overwhelming. Don't panic, you guys can do this. What my advice for you would be is to start with area. And we know that area equals length times width. Now remember last week we talked about there are going to be unknowns when we're solving for this. Today we have 2 unknowns. Okay, but the knowledge you have about multiplication is going to help you figure this out. So I'm going to start with area, right? So the area is 15. So I know that 15 is equal to my length times my width. So what I want to think about is what 2 numbers can we multiply together, then get 15. Now, I see a 5 here, which should be a clue that this is a multiple of 5. So I know my 5s really well. So I know that this could be 5 times 3. Okay? So I'm going to draw a rectangle that has a length of 5 and a width of 3. And I'm going to see if the perimeter is equal to 16. So I'm going to do it kind of like the one we just did. So my width is 3. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now for my length to be 5, I'm going to draw 4 lines. I'm going to try to make them even if I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this 3 times 5 gives me an area of 15 square units. Now I'm going to try out my perimeter formula and see if this is the correct model. So perimeter equals 2 times length plus 2 times width. So I'm going to plug in the length and width from right here into this formula and we're going to see what happens. So perimeter equals 2 times length, which is 5, plus 2 times width, which is 3. Okay, so all I did was take the length that we found here and the width and stick them in this formula. Okay, so now next step would be perimeter is equal to 2 times 5, which is 10, plus 2 times 3, which is 6. So perimeter equals 10 plus 6, which equals 16. So it worked. My perimeter is 16, which we figured out here. My area is 15, which we figured out here. Now, this one was a little easier because there's only 2 numbers we can multiply together to get 15. It won't always be that easy. Let's try one more, and then you guys are going to practice some on your own. So now, I have a perimeter of 20, an area of 24. Again, start with area and work backwards. That formula is easier to figure out. So, my area equals length times width. And I know that my area equals 24. Now, this one has more combinations. There are more factors of 24, so there are different ways we could make 24. So we might find an area that equals 24 that doesn't have a perimeter equal to 20. And then, if it didn't work, we'd have to try another factor pair for 24. So, I think of 2 and 12. Let's try that. If our length was 12, and our width was 2, our area would be 24. Now, I'm going to stick these two numbers into my perimeter formula and see if I get 20. So I'm going to do, let me draw a line between this so we don't get confused. Perimeter equals 2 times length plus 2 times width. Now I'm going to stick this length and width in that we just figured out. So 2 times 12 plus 2 times 2. Here was my 12 length, 2 width, and I just stuck them in. So 2 times 12, 24. 2 times 2 is 4. If I add those up, I get 28. That is not the correct perimeter. So for this rectangle, these are not the right side lengths. They're not 12 and 2. So what else could I try? Let's try 6 times 4. Oops. Sorry. That should be area. Trying to figure this out. 6 times 4 equals 24. Again, let me draw a line here. So now I'm going to take 6 and 4 and plug those in and see if those work. So perimeter equals 2 times length, which was 6, plus 2 times width, which was 4. Okay, so this time we have 2 times 6, which equals 12. And we have 2 times 4, which equals 8. What if we add those together? We get 20. Remember, that's what we were looking for. So, if I were to draw a rectangle, oops, I didn't make it big enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is my length. There's my width. Those are the numbers we just used. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 wide, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 long. If you were to count the squares all around, or use this formula, you'd find out that the perimeter of this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. The perimeter is 20, which is what we needed. And if I multiply my length times my width, 6 times 4, I get 24, which is exactly what I needed. So, don't let this overwhelm you. Start with area and work backwards, okay? So we have a little challenge for you. This is not going to be graded. I just want to get you thinking and practicing a little bit, and it's on your slide. Play around with some measurements on some scratch paper or sidewalk chalk outside, or if you have a dry erase board and dry erase markers, make it a little fun and colorful. Play around with some different measurements and see if you can come up with rectangles that have the same area and perimeter and some that have different area and perimeter, okay? For your practice today, you are going to go to math, under content, you're going to find area and perimeter for April 14th. You're going to solve those problems on scratch paper, type your answers into your Google Doc. Be sure you pay attention to whether it's asking for area or perimeter because it's going to ask you for both. And each problem you'll only do one. So it'll say create a rectangle with an area of 24 units. Or create a rectangle with a perimeter of 27. Okay? So do your best. Please reach out to me or Miss Bell if you need help. We want to help you and we want to see you succeed. We are so proud of you guys and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.